It's 2025 and the internet is still asking for the Polo to make a comeback. Newsflash, the Polo is not making a comeback into India anytime soon, but you do have an alternative. Meet the Skoda Kylaq. It doesn't look like the Polo. It doesn't even have the same badge on the nose as the Polo does. But I have a feeling that this is the spiritual successor to the Polo in India. Buckle up. First, a refresher on what made the Polo an icon. Wind the clock back to early 2010. The Polo launches in India. It had a very competent platform with benchmark levels of ride and handling. However, Volkswagen neutered it with small 3-cylinder petrol and diesel engines that made very little power and were far from enthusiastic. There was potential, but it wasn't on the enthusiast radar yet. Later in 2010, the Polo launches with a 1.6 petrol. This engine made over 100 horsepower and 153 Nm of torque. Better than before, but there was still more to be had. This car picked up the interest of the rallying community and is now a mainstay on the INRC circuit. April 2013, this is when the GT TSI launched. It brought with it a 1.2-litre turbocharged direct injection petrol engine. It was the most advanced engine in a small car at the time. It made 103 bhp and 175 Nm of torque, but it finally brought enthusiasm into the Polo. It also had a DSG, which was unheard of in a small car at the time. This is where the legend of the Polo was born. September 2013, this brought the GT TDI with a 1.6-litre diesel engine. It made 103 bhp and a solid 250 Nm of torque. At the expense of NVH, you got incredible performance and efficiency, but all the while in that same solid platform. 2020. This is where the big change to the Polo happened. All of the other engines were killed off and it got one engine, the 1-litre TSI. This engine, it was down on capacity, it had fewer cylinders. The DSG was swapped out for a torque converter. What was the big deal then? The big deal was that this was the most complete Polo yet. It may have been down on cylinders, it may have been down on capacity, but it made more power. It made 108.5 bhp and 175 Nm of torque. Add to that the fact that this torque converter didn't feel slow or sluggish. It actually felt quite peppy, especially when you put it into S. You could launch it much harder now because of the torque converter. The DSG didn't like being launched very hard, and you could now have it with a manual. You could have a TSI engine with a manual gearbox in the Polo. That was never a possibility before this. When we first drove this Polo right after lockdown, it thrilled us no end. It just hit all the right spots. It was eager, it was enthusiastic, it had a nice sound, the gearbox kept up with what you wanted to do. It just felt like a happy little puppy, and we loved that about it. And the platform remained, this was the platform that had debuted 12 years before that, but it was still the benchmark. 12 years later, the benchmark for ride and handling in the hatchback category. That just shows the level of engineering that went into this Polo. You need to remember that this car was engineered to do 200 kilometers an hour on the Autobahn. It had some serious engineering that was put into this platform. I mean, I'm driving this car today and I'm just grinning. It's just spot on, man. This car was phenomenal. It's a car that may not appeal to everybody. Somebody's looking for features and equipment and yada yada yada. The Polo never appealed to them. There were always cars out there that did that a lot better. The Polo was simple. It had a job to enthuse you. It did that job really well. 2025, the Polo's still making us smile. I know why people are still in the comment section of Volkswagen's Instagram handles and saying, bring the Polo back. But now the Polo is dead. Allow me to let you in on a little secret though. This Kylaq picks up right where the Polo left off. It gets the 4 key ingredients that made the Polo special. Number 1, compact dimensions. They took a Kylaq, chopped off a little bit of the wheelbase, trimmed the overhangs, and voila, you've got a sub 4 meter car, just a tad bit longer than the Polo. Number 2, the Kylaq has a great engine. Fun fact, it has the exact same engine that the Polo got in 2020. It's the 1 liter TSI. Now this engine has been fettled with a little bit and it makes a little more in terms of performance. Power is up around 5.5 horsepower to 114 bhp and torque is up 3 horsepower to 178 Nm. But I think the bigger news is that this engine is now localized in India. Well, what's this engine like? It's familiar, it's punchy, it's got strong grunt, it likes to rev, it sounds really throaty. The Kylaq has paddle shifters, which is something that the Polo never got, which is really nice. Plus you can get it with a manual. This engine also works really well with a manual transmission. So if you want to have full involvement, you can. One thing to note is that the Kylaq is heavier than the Polo, and that means the acceleration is not as rapid. It's a very small difference, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. It must be less than a second between them. But yes, engine, punchy, efficient, spot on. Now the third ingredient that the Kylaq has, which it has not inherited, but it shares with the Polo, is great handling. This platform is a generation ahead of the Polo. The Kylaq shares its platform with the Kylaq. It's the MQB-A0iN. And this platform has been chopped and modified for the Kylaq. So the Kylaq and Slavia get it, and now the Kylaq gets it. And what that means is best in class handling. Very few small cars handle the way the Kylaq does. It feels tight. There's a lot of control. You have good feedback through the chassis. You can tell what corner of the car is doing what. You can lean on the brakes, then get it to turn in on the brakes. It feels stable, it feels comfortable. There's a little bit of softness in the ride, so you can feel that mid-corner. But I'd say that's a good thing because our roads are so bumpy that when you do get a mid-corner bump, the Kylaq is actually able to deal with it. And it just feels enjoyable to drive, you know, you want to push it hard. It doesn't feel like it's struggling or, oh, why you're doing this to me. It's never saying any of those things. It's just saying, come on, give me more, let's find the limit. I want to find the limit. Number 4 is good build quality. European car makers take build quality very seriously, and the Kylaq is no different. Okay, I'll admit it doesn't feel as tank-like as some of the older cars like the Polo or the Vento. Maybe the plastics in some places don't feel as premium, but that said, it is built to last. I had a Kylaq and a Slavia on the fleet for over a year and they had no issues whatsoever. My family has a Kylaq which has run over 60,000 kilometers, not a squeak, not a rattle. This Kylaq is built on the same line, from the same parts, from the same vendors. And I don't think the story with the Kylaq will be different. It will be built to last. But that's not all. The Kylaq addresses 3 major flaws that the Polo had. Number 1 is space. The Kylaq has a much more usable backseat than the Polo. A couple of inches here, in the Polo, you're completely cramped. Plus, you get a larger boot here, 446 liters, which is almost 100 liters more than in the Polo. A lot more practical, a lot easier to convince the family to get one. Number 2, the Kylaq actually does have a lot of kit. You have a digital cluster, you have a large, vibrant infotainment screen, you've got ventilated seats, you've got a wireless phone charger, you've got fast charging USB Type-C ports, and you've got the all-important sunroof. Now, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I prefer the simple dials on the Polo to this digital screen, but the good thing is the Kylaq can actually be had with those dials on a lower variant. And number 3 is price competitiveness. The Polo was always considered a premium hatchback. Sure, it brought a lot to the table in terms of great engines, in terms of a solid engineered chassis, in terms of build quality, but it was always premium. and the hatchback segment was notoriously price conscious. Volkswagen did correct the pricing towards the end, but by then competition had gotten very stiff as well. You've seen the new i20, you know how good it is. The Kylaq, on the other hand, may be a little late to the compact SUV party, but it is priced really well. Rupees 8 lakhs to 14.5 lakhs ex-showroom. That's bang on par with the competition. Things have also moved forward a lot on the safety front. The Polo, it was considered a safe hatchback. It had scored 4 stars in the G NCAP crash test for the dual airbags version. For the Kylaq, it takes things forward significantly. All of that weight that I was talking about has gone into the platform to make it crash better. It has scored 5 stars in the Bharat NCAP crash tests, but it also gets a comprehensive suite of safety around it. 6 airbags compared to 2 on the Polo. You get ISOFIX mounts as standard, and you get a whole suite of electronic safety aids to keep you safer on the roads. Safety should not be a compromise, and the Kylaq makes sure it isn't. And of course, there's the question of form. That Polo is a proper hatchback. This is a sub 4 meter SUV. Now I know the sub 4 meter SUV segment is all smoke and mirrors. More often than not, these cars are hatchbacks with tall ground clearance and jacked up suspensions. But the Kylaq has the privilege of saying that it is based on a platform from the segment above it. It is based on the Kylaq's platform. Now compared to the Polo, this SUV-ness, it does mean a few things. One of them is you're sitting much higher in the car. The Polo, you feel like you're sitting on the ground, on the floor, inside the car. Here, well, you're sitting much taller. You've got better visibility for sure, but it's not to everyone's taste. Some of us just like to be a little lower down in the car. The second thing that it affects is the handling of the car. Because your roll center is a lot higher, your car will have a tendency to roll more in the corner, and well, then you've got to compensate for that with different engineering solutions. I think Skoda has done a great job. You know, despite this being such a tall car, you've got the ground clearance, you've got the suspension travel, and whether the limits of the car are above or below the Polos are honestly irrelevant, because what matters is that you're having fun driving this car. You enjoy pushing it hard, and that's exactly why we fell in love with the Polo, and that's exactly what the Kylaq does. And before we end, there's one more thing I want to tell you. This Kylaq is based on the MQB A0iN platform. That's the Indianized version of the MQB A0 platform sold in Europe. The only differences between the two are the fact that this is heavily localized. It's designed to use Indian steels and is designed for Indian cost structures without really watering down the structural rigidity of this platform. You know which other car is based on the MQB A0 platform in Europe? The Mark 6 Polo. Chew on that. So where does that leave Volkswagen in 2025? I'm honestly not quite sure. While the Kylaq was in development, the Volkswagen brand wanted nothing to do with it. We asked the management, and at every level, they just said, no, Volkswagen will not be making an SUV based on the Kylaq. But I think they've reevaluated that, they've seen sense in it, and now they're heading back to the drawing board, designing their own version of the Kylaq with a Volkswagen face, rear, and interiors. The problem is, that's going to take time, and the Volkswagen version is still some time away. We're not going to see it till another year or more. Volkswagen missed the bus on this one. In the meantime, we've got the Kylaq, and it does a great job of picking up where the Polo left off. It does the engine right, it does the handling right, it feels special, and it improves in so many ways from this package. I think we've got nothing to complain about.